We welcome those of you watching the Steelers-Bears game. Bob Costas with Ahmad Rashad and Paul McGuire. In that game, tied up at 3, good first half for Brian Hinkle of the Steelers. He recovers the Peyton fumble in the end zone, and then his interception sets up the Gary Anderson field goal that ties it at 3 before the half. Mike Tomczak, now the starting quarterback, of course, with McMahon out. Otis Wilson also a factor in the first half. Ernest Jackson's fumble recovered by Wilson. That sets up the Kevin Butler field goal that gave the Bears a 3-0 lead, and it was also a Wilson hit on Lewis Lips that sent the Steeler wide receiver out for the game with a concussion. Ahmad, you talked about the Bears on the pregame show, and Paul made the point that, sure, the defense, the NFL's best, is fine, but you can't give 10 points with them against anybody because the offense isn't generating anything.
Well, that's right, Bobby. They're doing what they've done all season. They're putting a lot of pressure on their defense, and something that Mike Ditka wanted to improve on was the turnovers. And already in the first half, they've got 2 of them, a fumble by Peyton and an interception by Tomczak. But an hour and 20 minutes in the first half, and the score is 3-3. Boy, am I glad I'm watching that on television instead of out there in the cold.
The Rams and the Jets at the Meadowlands. The Rams take a 10-0 lead into the third quarter. Jim Everett, a 60-yard touchdown pass to Kevin House, the refugee from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Lansford also has a 38-yard field goal. Eric Dickerson carried 15 times for just 49 yards in the first half. Paul?
First of all, the Rams just intercepted a pass in the third quarter against New York, but in 6 quarters, the Jets have not scored a touchdown. They talk about how bad the defense is hurting. The offense, they're not putting points on the board anymore.
No points on the board at the Superdome either. The Patriots return there for the first time since they were blown out by the Bears in Super Bowl 20. We'll take a look at the Louisiana Superdome. The Patriots come in at 9-3, riding a 6-game winning streak. New Orleans even for the year at 6-6. You know they've never had a winning season in the franchise's history. Here's a Tony Eason pass picked off by rookie linebacker Vaughn Johnson for Johnson, his first NFL interception. It's been an uncharacteristically poor first half for the Saints' Reuben Mays, the third-round draft choice from Washington State, who has been so outstanding. Fumbled twice in the first half. This one stops them around the Patriot 10-yard line as Don Blackman recovers. They go to the third quarter, still scoreless. Washington and St. Louis have just gone half, 17-10 in favor of the Redskins. Jay Schrader has thrown 2 touchdown passes in that one for Washington. Buffalo and Kansas City, a 10-7 halftime lead for Buffalo at Arrowhead. Marv Levy, who used to coach the Chiefs, returns as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Bill Kenny gets Kansas City on the board first. Out of the shotgun, a 12-yard pass to the end zone. Stephon Page hauls it in. A 7-0 Kansas City lead. After a 47-yard field goal by Scott Norwood, closed the gap to 7-3. Jim Kelly rolls left, tosses a 9-yarder to Andre Reed for the 10-7 lead for Buffalo. Shouldn't put those 2 words together in the future. I'll make a note of that. Deron Cherry then intercepted a Kelly pass in the end zone to keep it close. Buffalo was driving for another score, but Cherry picked it off and kept the score at 10-7. Houston and Cleveland, and in that one they go to the third quarter. No score at Cleveland, the Oilers and the Browns. San Diego and the Colts, and Indianapolis has just scored for the first time today. They get a field goal to narrow the margin to 10-3. They come in at 0-12. The Chargers at 2-10. That's Leslie O'Neal, fine young defensive lineman of the Chargers, their first-round draft choice, strained a left knee early in the game. Won't be back today. Dan Fouts goes up top, looking perhaps for Charlie Joyner. It's off his hands, but conveniently into the hands of Wes Chandler for a 30-yard touchdown. The Chargers led 10-0 at the half, and the Colts have trimmed that to 10-3. The Vikings take a 14-6 lead into the third quarter at the Metrodome on a pair of touchdown passes by Wade Wilson. Donald Igwebuike has 2 field goals for Tampa Bay, including a 55-yarder. When we come back, we reminisce with Max McGee and Fred the Hammer Williamson about Super Bowl I after this from your local. This January, it'll be 20 years since they played Super Bowl I in Los Angeles. The Kansas City Chiefs, coached by Hank Stram, against Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers. Boyd Dowler was out that day. In came the veteran Max McGee. Look at this catch, reaching back to beat Willie Mitchell. And the Hammer, Fred Williamson, appears on the scene a bit too late to stop him. Even though the Chiefs lost 35-10, the Hammer still looked good that day and thereafter. Fred Williamson and Max McGee join us now in the studio. Max, you were nearing the end of your career and, in fact, had caught just 4 passes during the year when you latched on to 7 in the Super Bowl game.
Well, I was actually beyond the end of my career as far as football, but I'll tell you, I'm glad I got in that day because otherwise I wouldn't be here today.
Despite the great career you had, it was that one Super Bowl game, really, that distinguishes you in the public's memory, right?
Nobody ever asked anything else about the other 300 I dropped, you know, just that one I caught in the Super Bowl.
Well, let me ask you this. I saw you quoted some places saying you'd established a different kind of NFL record even before the Super Bowl. 11 consecutive curfews missed without being caught.
Well, Horning started that rumor because he was with me, see. So, well, I was not exactly a real curfew guy, but, you know, we were in pretty good shape. You work for Vince Lombardi, you're ready to play every Sunday.
How would Lombardi react to somebody like you or a Horning? He himself a disciple of discipline and you guys free spirits.
You know, I think there's a misconception of Vince Lombardi. I think he would have liked to have as much fun as we did. He just didn't show that side. He had a great side to him that was, he liked to play golf for $5 Nassau, and he liked to go to Las Vegas and gamble, and I think people didn't know that, but he was actually a fun-loving guy.
We've got some footage here of Lombardi greeting the troops toward the end of his Packer career at the beginning of a training camp. Let's take a look. Vince Lombardi in the late 60s.
My name is Vince Lombardi. I want to welcome you to the Green Bay Packers. Last year, the Green Bay Packers won an unprecedented third successive world title. The Green Bay Packers have won 5 world championships in the last 8 years.
Was that a typical Lombardi address, or was that watered down for the cameras?
I think that was watered down because, I tell you, he was the most inspirational coach, of course, I probably up to that time, and maybe still, but when he gave a speech, I've actually seen in big games when, you know, when he said, all right, let's get out and get them, I've seen guys run through their locker, push the door down the wrong way. You know, he had that kind of effect on people, and I think that's the reason he won 5 world championships.
Is it true that the key about Lombardi was not so much his skill as a tactician, although obviously he excelled there, but his ability to make people play beyond the potential they thought they had?
I think so, and I think we called it coaching by intimidation. He did intimidate some of the people and made them play better than they really were. And I think if you look at guys like Fuzzy Thurston, Jerry Kramer, they went out and played better than maybe they were capable of, but that's the kind of coach he was.
Let's turn to the hammer here. You guys represent the AFL against a team that's already legendary, the Packers. It's the first Super Bowl. Nobody gives you a chance.
It was really the only Super Bowl. I think that was the Super Bowl. What we play now, what we see now is an image of the Super Bowl. There was the best of the American Football League against the best of the National Football League. You don't, today it's the AFC and NFC. I think that was the only Super Bowl.
And what was the feeling? You guys representing the upstart league, what was the feeling coming in?
Well, you know, when you're asking me, you're talking to an individual, because I didn't think like the other guys. I thought like Fred Williamson. I had seek and destroy on my mind. They, you know, to me, I was the villain of the Super Bowl. Don't talk to the press. So I was the Pied Piper. They followed me around because I was the only guy talking to the press. I mean, Green Bay Packers meant nothing to me. Boyd Dowell meant nothing to me. Max McGee, who was Max McGee? I mean, I could cover Max McGee in my mind. I mean, whether or not I could or could not was totally unimportant. This is how I felt about the game. Meanwhile, the coach is saying, be quiet. You're going to make them angry, and you're going to fire them up for this game. And I said, hey, we didn't sneak into town. They know we're here. We came in a big jet. It made a lot of noise. They know we're here. So I was the villain, man. I was the Pied Piper. So everything I did was wrong and right at the same time.
Did he make you guys angry?
Well, I tell you, we had a lot of fun with it because he did, you know, Vince jumped on that immediately because Freddie came out as the hammer, and I'm going to bust up all these helmets, and, you know, those helmets pretty hard to break, but I think it added something to that game, really, and Vince took a big hold on that.
Who was it who hit you and put you out of the game?
No, that's wrong. It's another person. That didn't happen to me.
Well, let's watch.
Yeah, let's watch. It was,
Go ahead and talk.
It was Donnie Anderson making a sweep. See me come up, you'll see me come up, get past the guard,
right,
make a tackle. My knee, his knee hit me on the top of the head. That was Anderson. Now I'm embarrassed. I'm down. I saw this later. They went crazy. The Green Bay Packers jumping up and down. Said, they got the hammer, they got the hammer. So I was embarrassed. I was down, and I was embarrassed, and I didn't want to get up, and they said, get up, and I said, I'm not. If you want me, I'm not going to stagger off this field. I'm not going to wobble off this field. If you want me off the field, carry me. And they carried me, and they dumped me on the sidelines, and I jumped up and waved at my fans and let them know I was all right.
It was only 14-10 Packers at the half, as I recall, although they went on to win 35-10. And a few years later, the Jets and then the Chiefs in Super Bowl IV beat the NFL representatives.
Right.
How close were you guys at the very beginning? Was it closer than those scores indicated?
Yeah, we were in the game all the way. I think that, you know, the coaches always talk about we're not going to put anything new. We're not going to change our game plan because we have this big game. We're going to do everything that brought us here. We're not going to change our play. We had more plays. We had more new plays than we had old plays. I mean, not to say anything against Stram's coaching, but, you know, they were playing Otis Taylor 12 yards deep. And I said, well, you know, you take 10 passes, 10 yards deep, you got 100 yards, just score a touchdown. They kept trying to go long on Herb, when Herb was playing 12 yards deep. And I said, why? Why are you throwing these short passes, these long passes? And he said, sit down.
So McGee could become a hero. 15 seconds here, 2 quick questions. Did you feel you were much superior to the Chiefs and then the Raiders in those 2 Super Bowl games?
No, I don't think we thought those 2 teams were very good. We thought the rest of the league was not up to par, but the 2 best teams that we played were very good teams. They had a lot of all-pro players there, but with Vince Lombardi, we had the best of it.
And your latest project on the silver screen, I know television is too small to contain your compelling personality. It's the big screen that's required.
Thank you for saying that, because if I said that, they would take offense to that. My next film is The Messenger is coming out. I'm eliminating dope pushers on the street vigilante style, and then I'm off now to Rome to do one called Black Cobra.
And a King Cobra jacket adorning the body of the Hammer. Understated and modest as always. NFL 86 halftime activities will continue.